usual, utterly overpraised Miyazaki. I could not see what people find so amazing about these Miyazaki films, but I find them totally overrated.
Oh my gosh.
Well, he just repeated himself.
The scripts are totally banal and unnatural with nothing that makes me feel any emotion or humor.
Are you dead?
What a cold corpse this person is.
Lifeless
Yes,
inside.
the emotion is what must attract people. Mainly, I guess, it's just me, but... You know.
Oh, he admits he's the problem.
I remember watching weird cartoons in the 80s. I used to watch, He-Man and The City of Gold and Thundercats. This is just the same thing.
I had lots of emotion from
Same thing as
those.
Thundercats? Well, I remember that moment in the movie when Kiki went, Thunder, Thundercat.
Yeah.
That was a 1-star review from IMDb. Hello and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I'm your host, Andrew, joined as always by Ryan.
I'm going to get on a bike with a big propeller on the front and I'm going to ride as fast as I can.
And Steven.
Ryan is interested in taking the most inefficient path to the beach.
It really is the most inefficient.
It looks like so much effort.
Nuh-uh, if I put my hands out, that's like wings, and then it'll like...
So there was actually
that's
a whole thing that someone did to see if that was even like
physically
worthwhile.
possible.
And it's possible, but
Let me guess, it's not.
It's so absurdly inefficient.
It's just the start from zero. Like if you actually start at the top of the hill,
Yes.
Well, it just doesn't matter. You don't have to pedal. You just fall.
don't have to-
It's
yeah, you
gravity
just fall.
takes
Maybe
it.
if you had a bike that had like so many gears, like the ratio on the gears was so obscene that you just like barely pedal. It's already like 20 revolutions. Then maybe you could
And
like...
it's so dangerous.
Right,
for sure.
That's all I could think about in that scene was like, that is like, bicycles are pretty narrow. That is like a 6 foot wide spinning blur of death going down this hill.
Yeah. There's a lot that could have gone wrong with that.
So
Just
if
like a
you-
baby carriage.
We're getting ahead.
Yeah, we're well ahead of
If
ourselves.
you haven't guessed, this week we are discussing Kiki's Delivery Service, the 1989 animated classic directed by Hayao Miyazaki and done by Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a fantastic film. But before we get to that,
Yes.
I want to talk about this is a very cozy kind of slice of life film. It makes you feel all warm inside most of the time.
Yeah.
And there's a couple times in the movie that we have these very like homemade recipes that she is delivering to loved ones or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm curious from your experiences as people.
As humans, which we totally are.
We are absolutely. ChatGPT has nothing to do with this.
No one double check it. Trust us, we're human.
Tell me what one of your favorite dishes are. It could be from family get-togethers, birthdays, grandparents, whatever.
Yeah,
a signature dish that you always look forward to every year or whatever whenever you get to see family members.
But first, Ryan, you have to identify all parts of this photo that include a bus.
There are no buses. Error. I'll lead off. So my birthday is like right around Thanksgiving. So like the benefit I always had growing up was like I had the whole family over at the grandma's house. I could like bilk them all for presents. But I also got like
A little mercenary over here.
yeah. But like so because of that, Thanksgiving is like my favorite holiday, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
like my coziest, my memory, the thing I looked forward to every year was my grandmother's dressing that she made on Thanksgiving because it was killer. And I the recipe's got to be somewhere
How
in a
many
drawer.
sticks of butter were in that dressing?
I'm sure it's just all of them.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking
it was
about.
so good. And like, so my weird, like, Thanksgiving birthday tradition was like, I would always look forward to like that dressing. And like, so every year we would split Thanksgiving between the two grandmothers,
Yeah.
And so like there was one year where I didn't get over there in time and they ate all the dressing and I had like a come apart. I was like 6 or 7, like young enough to still have a meltdown and it not be like weird, but I probably would have still melted down later in life too. Like,
Even like 15, having a melt temperature
28,
on the floor.
just But like I'll never forget it because it was like my birthday's ruined, and I was like going around, how many plates did you get? How many? I was like, it was like that scene where you're like in the courtroom and I'm just pointing at everybody, like accusing
Like,
everyone.
grab like your older cousin, punch him in the soul, like
Yeah.
give some back.
Yeah, spit it out. It's in your big belly somewhere. Pow, pow, pow. Yeah, but her dressing, like, man, it was just killer. And like I've had, you know, a lot of really good dressing since. Like I've gone to like my wife's family, they make killer dressing. I've had good stuff, but nothing touches like that memory, that core memory. And it would every year, she'd only make it once a year on Thanksgiving. That's it. I would beg her in the summer, please just make it.
No, you can't do it.
Nope. It's like
how it works.
one time
yeah,
a year.
how it
And like
works.
every time you take that first bite and it's just like, oh, I'm right back. You know, like now I'm home. So yeah, that's mine, is my grandmother's dressing.
Nice. Steven?
All right, we're gonna get a little weird with it. This is a different choice here in food. Like honestly, so my birthday.
Gummy worms.
I love gummy worms. Get out of here. No, my birthday is actually typically the week before Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Yeah, we're real close.
Oh.
But I do not count Thanksgiving dinner as my birthday. That is a separate event.
Okay.
They're
You're far enough
mutually
away from it.
exclusive.
You're far enough away
there's
from
enough
it.
time
you
that
guys-
there's no relatives in town, like guaranteed.
Got it. Yeah.
Typically, like at best, it's like I wake up the day after my birthday and it's Thanksgiving. Like that's the closest it gets, basically.
Okay. Mine lands like every 10 years, like on Thanksgiving, give or take. It's pretty wild.
Should not be 10. It should be like 7. That's how
Well,
weeks,
it's like-
that's how weeks work or something like that.
No, leap years throw it off though, because it's
I
weird.
guess,
Yeah.
Anyways, math. How do you work?
No one knows.
No one knows. No one truly knows.
Anyways.
So what I go for here on my birthday, this is it's a, like I don't know. There's actually a name for this dish. We literally just call it by like some of the main ingredients.
We can come up with it if you
Butter, eggs,
Oh yes, no, beef noodles and sour cream.
beef noodles.
beef noodles and stuff.
So this is very much so kind of like a stroganoff.
Okay.
So it's basically, you know, ground beef. You brown the beef. You know, salt and pepper. You know, don't be an animal.
So it's not
Actually
raw.
season-
You brown it.
You brown it.
Okay, good.
Then
It's a good first step.
You do like egg noodles with tomato juice, and you cook it in the tomato juice.
Oh yeah.
And then, you know, beef goes in, and you drop in. There's some other spices that go in, and you put some sour cream in to kind of thicken it into like a sauce.
Yeah.
So it's very much like a stroganoff, except it doesn't have mushrooms, which I hate
Right.
mushrooms.
Yeah.
They ruin everything. And it's
Agree to
just,
disagree. Moving on.
you know, it's one of these.
We've had this
recipes-
discussion before.
Yeah, we have. You can check it out. It's our pizza.
Yeah,
Patreon
our
bonus
pizza
episode.
Patreon.
Where Ryan threatened to have an entire pizza only made out of a lot of different mushrooms.
I did. I would have gobbled it.
We're gonna do that.
Even
as
the
a-
crust would be mushrooms in this scenario.
We're gonna do that as a
disgusting.
prank one day.
And you're
We're
gonna watch me eat
Oops,
it,
all
and it's gonna
mushroom.
horrify you, and I'm gonna be happy.
And the smell's going to make us sick.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna be in hog heaven. Anyways,
But yeah, so it's
this
one of
sounds
these things.
very similar to like a dish that my other grandmother, my mom's side, used to make, but she didn't include the sour cream every time.
Yeah,
Sometimes it'd be
so-
really runny. It was like, I guess
Yeah,
we didn't
so
have any
you
sour
gotta
cream.
You gotta like let it, you gotta let the tomato juice kind of simmer down. You put the sour cream in to thicken it up. And it's one of those dishes too that so long as you don't you're not an animal and you throw it in the microwave to reheat it the next day.
Yeah.
it's better the next day because everything's had more
It
time.
soaks in the juices, yeah.
it's really.
How much sour cream we talking? Like, how thick is the sauce at the end of it? It's still watery, right?
It's not that watery.
Okay.
But it's also not like solid. So it's probably like a
We talking like a pint of sour cream?
no like a 8 ounce.
Okay.
It's like an 8 ounce.
I'm
sour-
picturing like a big,
get like a big old
a soup
gallon
pot.
bucket
Yeah.
of,
like an
sour
8 ounce
cream.
thing of sour cream to
Okay.
like an entire
He's just bathing in it.
pan's worth of food.
Okay. Yeah.
So and you can't use, as my mom discovered one year, you can't use low fat sour cream.
No, yeah. It
No.
The whole
separates.
purpose of it is the
Well,
fat. Yeah.
That's the thing. Whenever you have these like family recipes and stuff, you always have that one relative that's like, we can make this healthier for us.
It's like, you're a fool.
Yeah, no, everything is the most unhealthy it could possibly be.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what makes food taste good.
Yeah.
So typically we eat this with, you get like saltine crackers. You just,
Yeah.
you just kind of scoop it onto the saltines.
Yeah.
And of course my mom has gone through these kicks of like low sodium. So at one point in time, the only saltines in the house were low sodium saltines. The name is saltines. You can't be like, hey, it has low salt.
Well, it's the
That's
same
not-
thing of like low sodium bacon.
Oh, what's wrong with people? That's not, you
Yeah.
didn't cure it. It's not healthy. It's not food safe.
This is raw pork.
It's just been sitting out in the sun. It's terrible for you. Ugh. Oh man. Ugh.
So there's no name for it. Y'all just call it
I
like
don't
beef
like,
sour cream and noodles,
yeah,
or how do you,
beef noodles and sour cream. I don't know. So again, like this is something that
Do you get to have this like every year?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna make it. I could make it myself if I wanted to, but it's better when somebody else makes the dish for you.
that's
right?
all food I've found.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point.
I love to cook, but man, when somebody cooks for you and it's good,
It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
it's way better.
But it's one of those things where my parents didn't always have like a ton of money and all that, and like I've discovered as growing up, I'll bring up like, oh yeah, we used to eat this, and, like other people look at me like I'm crazy, like
Oh, dude.
what? Like
I've
we
got
just
so
like,
many.
but it tastes so good. You grew up with it as a kid.
I mean, you
right?
had squirrel brains, like.
Well, that was an offshoot. that was
That's
like
not
hey, I
that's
dare
not
you to
on
eat
purpose.
this.
Yeah.
So like the one that my wife always like turns her nose up at is tuna mac and cheese. My mom used to make mac and cheese, just dump a can of tuna in it. I'd eat it up like, man, it was so good because we were broke and all we had was like a can of tuna for protein and then mac and
But
cheese.
see if you do that,
Here we
like,
go.
Like you take like the Kraft mac and cheese,
Yeah.
and then like again, you don't have much money, you get like the 10 chicken or the packaged chicken.
Yeah, that'll work too.
That's just as good. You just gotta drain
Throw
it.
any meat in mac and
gotta drink.
cheese.
So
You're pretty
thi-
much on your way.
This is not mine. But I'm gonna just because you brought
okay.
up Kraft mac and cheese.
right.
Back when I was in cross country during high school and stuff.
When I played sports, according to Kraft mac and cheese, I was a family of four.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah,
And then I was
you
gonna
get
have dinner afterwards.
You
Hey,
get the,
I wasn't in cross country and I was a family of four.
You get the sharp cheddar box that has like the packet with the actual cheese in it.
Oh, yeah.
and not the powder.
Yeah.
And man,
man,
I could
sometimes-
just decimate an entire
Sometimes the
box.
powder.
yeah,
sometimes
easy.
when you just know that what you're eating is pure artificial, it's still good.
Oh, it's delicious.
It's just the right. You know
Yeah.
you're eating out of a garbage can. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But I remember those days in high school. You could come home, make you a pot of mac and cheese after school, sit down with the pot and just eat it. And then like 2 hours later, your mom's like, dinner's ready. You're like, oh yeah, it is.
But I would come home from high school and have like a 3 p.m. snack, and it would be a plate, like a full-size dinner plate, covered in steak fries, and my grandmother would dump.
You don't do this every day,
Not anymore. I'm over 40. I'd be 800 pounds. She would get. They had this brand of chili at the time that was like, I can't. It was Campbell's, but it wasn't like the normal. It was like the
It's like the chunky.
Oh,
can.
like
it was
chunky,
huge, but it was
yeah,
like
big and meaty,
wolf
hearty.
something. It had like a
wolf chili.
It had a weird like name. It wasn't like the chunky. It was like something else. But it was like this huge, and the can would be like 4 servings. She would pour it on top of this plate of cheese fries or steak fries.
Yeah.
cheese. And I got the Kraft extra sharp block. It just shred on top of it, and
yeah.
I would eat it, and then eat dinner at 6:30.
Oh yeah.
And high school kids are
Dude,
I weighed
ridiculous.
120
Yeah,
pounds.
no, that was the thing. It's like I was trying to gain weight. I was
Me too.
underweight. I come home from high school, slap like 3 corn dogs in the oven, eat that, and then be like, "So when are we making dinner?"
Oh, I mean, I'd go through like a pack of hot dogs, like
Oh, that
like
is nothing.
at least a week, easy.
My
and that
mom-
wasn't for dinner. That
My
was just,
metabolism
I
was
get
like
home.
dissolving food before it got to my mouth. It was like, come on, let me taste
my
it.
mom would be like, buy the 60 bag of pizza rolls. Be like, that's good for 1 serving.
2 hours. Yeah. Okay, Andrew, we've talked about all the trash we used to eat as teenagers. What is your?
Yeah, so you guys have already mentioned birthdays. I'm
Yeah.
gonna also mention birthdays.
Oh,
So
okay.
mine,
I know what we're going for here.
Yeah, mine and my dad's birthday are one day apart.
Okay, cool.
nice.
So
That's
I'm
nice.
I'm one day before him, and
Well,
then,
I hope you're more than 1 day before him.
well. What?
Then he couldn't be your father.
It'd be difficult.
But yeah, so basically, that
Continue. I'm,
comment made literally no
Keep going.
sense.
I'm stumbling and I'm sitting down, so just keep going, power through it.
Okay, so before I was born, my mom found this recipe called the perfect chocolate cake
Okay,
from a
nice.
recipe book from 1976.
We're off to a great start.
Good year,
And-
good title. I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
this is a triple layered triple layered chocolate cake. So you have basically cake, heavy whipping cream, and then like kind of like this
Chocolate on the outside?
Well, it's like kind of like this chilled frosting on the outside. That's just like
It's
it's
delicious.
just sugar and butter.
So is it
That is
hot on the
delicious.
inside, chilled on the outside?
No. Okay, so the best way to eat this cake
Yeah.
is it's really, I mean, it's good the second it comes out of the oven and it's all together.
Yeah.
However, it is better the next day after it's had an entire night to chill in the refrigerator.
that
So
is
it's almost
when
like
you
a
know-
cheesecake, like the temperature wise, you want it like cold.
But that's when you know you have like one of the good recipes is when you're like, yeah, it's good out of the pot, But if you let it sit for 24 hours and let those flavors really get to know each other,
Man, yeah.
So my mom had found this recipe and just made it for my dad one year for his birthday.
Yeah.
And this was before I was born, and he just loved it.
Yeah.
And he was like, I want this every year. So up until I was born, she basically made one for him every single year.
Right.
And then whenever I was born, they were like, well, now we have someone else in the house, and we need to keep making this. So then
I thought you were gonna say we can never make it again.
we're done. Cut it off.
so then
Can't let our baby get fat.
so pretty much every year from 1 year old all the way until now, I've had this chocolate cake made by my mom every year until me and Holly, my mom moved out to Hawaii, and then Holly basically took over that part of
cake making
the
duty
cake
of the
making.
birthday. Yeah.
And I mean, it's just been really, really cool because every year I get to have it, and that's you can't have this cake outside of the birthday week.
You got to make it special.
Yeah.
Well, if you had it all the time, then what would be the point? Right?
I would be 700 pounds.
Well,
That
also
would be
true.
twice.
That is another issue.
But yeah, this is definitely one of those where it's got like 2 full cups of butter in it. It's all
it's
sugar and chocolate, and there's nothing healthy in
Paula
this at
Deen
all.
walks by and is like, yeah, that's about the right amount of butter. That's when you know all right, we've got a good recipe
done
going
it right.
now. Yeah.
But I kid you not, like this is really the only cake that I'll eat. I'm not a big cake fan.
See, as a fellow non-cake eater, I can understand that. Also, the Mighty Ducks ruined me. Like, cake, I'm not a cake eater.
I love cake, and I am very interested in this cake recipe.
But yeah, so we make it every year, and there's only 1 year.
So is the recipe still from like a book of a 1970s thing? You've got like the magazine
So we
cut
actually
out.
have it framed
Nice.
upstairs.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Just go take a photo of it. You can have it whenever you
Yes,
want.
we found the cookbook.
I'm going to steal
Be like,
it.
Brianna, I got a job for you.
So we basically
November.
found the pages that my mom had taken out.
Yeah.
And ripped it out of the actual cookbook.
Yeah.
And then we framed those.
Heck yeah.
And
That's
put
awesome,
them up.
dude.
Yeah. And
Somebody else bought that.
Now, if you ever
cookbook
forget
at
the recipe, you can just go, huh?
well, no, that's what Holly uses now. She just goes and she's like, well, that's where it is. Yep.
Look at the frame. Okay. Nice.
But yeah, it's a fantastic chocolate cake. I can actually, there's a Reddit post about this chocolate cake.
Oh, really?
That I can add onto the Discord for people that are relatively interested in it. But
So a Reddit post that you started, or that someone else started? Okay.
So this recipe like exists in the wild.
It does.
Wow.
But this is one of those things where absolutely it's good. Day one,
chill.
let it chill overnight.
Yeah.
It is perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, I kid you not. All right, so let's talk about Kiki's Delivery
I'm
Service.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, I'm starving. Let's talk about Kiki's.
So this was came out in 1989, directed by Hayao Miyazaki.
Yep.
Written initially, the novel was Eiko Kodono.
Sure.
Yeah, Kodono. And Hayao Miyazaki he wrote the screenplay for it after 2 other people had already gotten a hold of it, and he didn't like it. He wasn't even interested in directing this film, and then basically he
was just like, you're screwing it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Read like
So was
this.
it someone at Studio Ghibli was doing it?
No,
or-
it was a completely different studio.
Okay,
and
sure.
then they just kind of fumbled around with it, and he was like, "No, this is
It's
mine
not like
now."
he's walking down the hallway and he sees someone else like,
No, can't have that.
I mean, that is how he is in real life.
I know,
But
that's why I was picturing like some other poor guy's like sweating away on this script and he just comes by. No, it doesn't spark joy.
Yeah. But yeah, so please hold. My phone decided that it didn't. It wanted to close my
It
browser.
happens to the best of us.
Does it though?
So,
does it maybe?
I guess that's interesting that
prepared.
it started life at like 2 other studios
yeah.
or whatever, and it found its way eventually
When
back
is the
to.
book from?
That is a good question. I really couldn't find a ton of info on it, but you can look.
I'm gonna hunt. Yeah, I'm gonna
so
hunt.
here's the overview or the synopsis for Kiki's Delivery Service. 13-year-old Kiki moves to a seaside town with her talking cat Gigi to spend a year alone in accordance with her village's traditions for witches in training. After learning to control her broomstick, Kiki sets up a flying courier service and soon becomes a fixture in the community. But when the insecure young witch begins questioning herself and loses her magical abilities, she must overcome her self-doubt to get her powers back.
There it
Okay,
is.
so originally published 1985.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I ran across like a reprint or whatever, and it was like published June 8th, 2021. I was like, well, I know that's wrong.
But yeah, so this film is probably one of my just favorite films. It's a very cozy slice of life film. There's really not a lot of like there's no real antagonist outside of self-confidence.
Right. Yeah. It's
The trials and tribulations of being a teenager.
A teenager, well, really
It's a
just
coming-of-age
it's coming-of-age
story.
story
Yeah.
of
That's
someone
what being a
trying
teenager
to
is.
find their place in the world and come to terms with just, burnout, and I'll say artist block is just the best way to
getting the
describe
yips, as they say.
Getting
yips.
the yips. Please don't ever.
Yeah, so this had a budget of 6.9 million US. So like 800 million yen, but we'll just go US dollars
US
here.
Now, did you adjust that for 1980s inflation?
No.
Okay.
No, that's just what it was.
Yeah.
The box office was 41.8 million US
It's a good.
In
Good
80s?
in Japan.
Oh, sorry.
In Japan.
Got it. Okay.
So the US did not get any kind of release of this until 1998.
Yes.
Right.
Which was the first Disney dub. But there was also an English dub that happened before this, but I can't find it anywhere.
It's basically
Right.
impossible to find.
Yes.
Yeah.
It just doesn't exist once Disney got a hold of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Disney was like, we have this nice vault. You want to see our vault?
Well, so and then in 2010 they did a remaster of it where they actually it gets really kind of convoluted. The first dub in 1998 had a lot of like changes of music and different character motivations and that kind of
The
stuff.
translations aren't great or well done. Or they just change the meaning of
yeah.
what a character wants or whatnot.
well, because 98, that was still before like I would go as far as say like
Wild West.
It was.
of English
especially
dubs.
for dubs like that. People were like, especially studios were like so
Especially
nervous
Disney.
that like Americans won't understand these motivations. It's like, yeah, we will. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like,
So in 2010 they redid the whole thing and they brought back pretty much all the original music. They cut out certain lines of dialogue, which we'll get to past the spoiler wall because I don't want to like give away anything.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And it's very interesting because Disney has finally, I think, realized a lot of the mistakes that they made initially. But I watched the first version on Disney Channel so many times when it came out, like 2002-ish or whatever.
Right.
For like they had on Disney
when
Channel.
it hit Disney Channel. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm curious of what you guys think because this is one of my favorite films, just hands down.
so I wouldn't go that far. I really do like this movie though. It's one of my favorite Miyazaki movies. So I like my exposure to Ghibli and Miyazaki was Princess Mononoke
was first,
and
yeah.
Miramax, got the rights back in the 97,
97, 98.
somewhere in there, around that time. And it was like I think I can't remember if I bought it without renting it or rented it because it was that whole era is like kind of a blur for me.
It's also kind of a wild time when you could just be like, do
Yeah.
I rent it or I buy it? Well, if I just buy it, it's only like $1 more than the rental.
Right. Yeah. It was weird. So I remember that was my first exposure, and then they slowly started bringing more movies over. And I don't think I watched Kiki in like 02 or 03.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like after I'd graduated college, and I was making a concerted effort
To watch all of
to
them,
watch.
yeah.
Yeah. And more of them had become available.
Well, because after that,
So
by
easy
then it
now,
would
it's
probably
like-
be
Yes.
after Howl's Moving Castle came out, Spirited
Yes,
Away, obviously.
Spirited Away.
Definitely
Oh,
after
yeah.
Spirit, because Spirited Away launched a bunch of stuff.
2001, 2002.
But I mean, that one, after it, I feel like there was a lot more access to them, and they were more
yeah,
prevalent.
Also, like Disney was like, this is a gold mine. Give us
Right.
everything you've
Yeah,
got.
because
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of like popular culture was like, "Oh, this is good stuff," and it's like, "Well, it's always been good. You just saw it now." But
Right, yeah. But yeah,
Just
so
watching his 12th film or whatever.
I really like Kiki's, and it's one of those movies where I could see someone complaining about it because there's not a ton of like plot. Like it's not a world-ending situation. You know what I mean? Like
there's
it's
Well,
really-
it doesn't need to be
no.
that.
But my experience going into it the first time was I was expecting that.
like an actual like
'Cause-
dramatic plot.
Yeah, I think my at that point I had seen, Princess Mononoke. I had seen Spirited Away. I think maybe I had seen Nausicaa,
Which
before this.
all three are very linear paths
They are.
down a story, which are totally fine.
Right,
And they're
yeah.
fantastic films for it. But Kiki's is a very different vibe than a lot of the
100%.
other Ghibli
Yeah.
films that have come out.
And I like it a lot for that. But like on my first viewing, it took me probably about the halfway point of the movie.
You're like,
to
"Oh, okay,
figure
nothing's
out,
going to happen here."
Oh, okay, this is going to be just
Yeah.
a chill or kind of chill.
She's not going to
yeah.
be like in danger for her life. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right, yeah. And once I wrapped my head around. I like it a lot. It's a really good story. It's a really good movie to throw on when like you just want to relax. You know what I mean? Like you don't want
It's very
tension.
cozy.
It's cozy. Yeah.
You don't find yourself like leaning forward in your seat. There's like one moment maybe, tops.
But you can still root for Kiki. But yeah, it's very much a coming of age, just like a cozy little story.
And the thing that I like about it so much is like it is a very like chill, cozy kind of show, but there's also some very emotionally driven moments that really can hit you pretty hard.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you've ever experienced a lot of this kind of stuff that she's going through in real life. And it, can really kind of like add on top of each other, which is, I think, one reason why I like this genre of story so much is because it's just coming to terms with a lot of the stuff that just happens in life.
Right. Yeah. It's very, even though it's about a girl that flies on a broom, it's very down to earth. It's very like, it connects to your, like the common shared experiences a lot of us have. Yeah. Steven, what do you think?
So similar to Ryan, right? Like this is not my top. This is probably doesn't make my top 5 of Ghibli films.
I mean, that's fine.
That doesn't make it a bad film.
No.
It's still a very good film.
No, very
I've still
good.
seen it, half a dozen times. Both, sub and dub. Because
and
why not?
I'll definitely say this: the sub and dub are both fantastic.
Yeah.
The dub has Kirsten Dunst as Kiki.
Yes.
Phil Hartman as Gigi, who's a fantastic personality.
He does really good.
He does very, very good. Then you have
Matthew Lawrence.
Matthew Lawrence in there, who's big
Tombo.
Disney.
Tombo.
Yeah. Anyways, continue.
I mean, it is definitely its own vibe, right? Ryan, I think you made a comment, right? Like, I'm going to watch this film and then I have my yearly moment of, should I sell everything I own and move to a Mediterranean town?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
I always get that vibe of like, why am I dealing with all this stress? Why do I live where I could just ride a bike down to like a bakery? I should do this on the coast.
Meanwhile, you're watching like Kiki, lose her faith in herself as she stresses herself out. You're like, I could go there and be so relaxed.
I'm losing my faith and I live here. I don't live by the sea.
These children don't have a clue what they're missing out on.
Yeah.
This is a good
Look around you, woman.
This is a good moment for our first bit of trivia.
Okay.
During production phase, Hayao Miyazaki and his artist traveled to Sweden to research for the film. The photographs they took of Stockholm and Visby formed the basis of the fictional city of Koriko. The city itself also contains elements from Lisbon, Paris, San Francisco, and Milan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so
I've seen quotes where it's supposed to basically be like, as it's a peninsula and the Mediterranean is on one side of it and the Balkan is on the other.
Yeah.
Baltic. Sorry, Baltic, not Balkan. Wrong side of things.
I was like, wow.
Yeah, that's not very far apart there. But yeah, so it's supposed to be like the Mediterranean on one side and the Baltic on the other.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of similarities in maybe not the climate of the area, but of the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, and the story is meant to take place during an alternative 1950s Europe where World War I and World War II never happened. So it's a little bit more of a...
It's a much more innocent time.
It is.
And the technology is not... I mean, we still have, like, Zeppelins flying around and stuff like that.
It's dirigibles, which is a great example of why dirigibles are terrible.
Among many others.
Let's bring them back. We just got to give them a shot, Andrew.
Man, we were on this is a total tangent. We were on a rooftop before this recording for a party, and there's a whole craze.
A dirigible flew over.
No. There was the whole craze of putting a dirigible dock on top of your building to show that you were as a city. This is like in the early 1900s.
You could moor an airship.
Yeah, in an early time, 1900, when this was like a big thing happening.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to be a city on the map? Well, does one of your buildings have somewhere for the inevitable dirigible future where they can dock?
Yeah.
Which is a terrible idea because when you dock one to it, it just becomes a giant flag.
Oh gosh, yeah. None of that was thought.
No, it was purely just a marketing stunt.
Yeah.
But there's just a building here in Birmingham that still has it on there.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's wild.
So, obviously we've talked about, kind of like the vibe and the feel of it. This is an animated film, and this is definitely some of his like really earlier work. But Ghibli and Miyazaki have just done some phenomenal animation.
Level of detail. It's not necessarily like in modern terms of anime where it's like, the action, the movement.
There's like 700 impact frames in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah, it never has that moment because it's not that kind of story.
Yeah.
But within the story it tells, the animation is very competent. Like it's good. There's good motion, but at the same time, if you like slow down and just watch the background,
Oh, man.
there's everything is there. It looks like a
Everything's moving,
lived-in town where when you watch like a CGI 3D film nowadays, a lot of times, especially in the early days of CGI, the backgrounds are empty because they couldn't afford to render all this stuff.
Yeah.
Who has this RAM? Who has this processor? Right? Whereas there, it's just like, well, the RAM and the processor are your hands, so you better get to work.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too, is Miyazaki is very much a perfectionist when it comes to animation,
Right.
And his matte backgrounds and details and small little tidbits that really just add so much life into his works.
So there's a sequence. Sorry,
I was gonna say, just what I find is when I pause a lot of Miyazaki movies, I'm like, that could be a screensaver. Right
I know
there.
it could.
Oh, yeah.
Every frame could be like,
a
I could print that
background.
off, put that on my wall.
Well, so there's a sequence, right, in The Wind Rises that it's a 4-second shot of a crowd during, I think it's Wind Rises, is when there's the earthquake.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was pretty sure.
This is still a movie that he's never seen.
I've never seen.
I haven't
But
seen it either.
I saw this and I was like, I know what film this is from. And that good. But that sequence took them 1 year and 3 months to animate.
Oh my
This is
gosh.
4 seconds of a clip in a film that's hour and a half, hour 45
That's
long.
about 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Yeah.
1 year and a couple of months.
So you're looking at like 5% of the film.
Absolutely
Less than.
no. This
Yeah,
is a
less than.
percent. This is the absolute dedication to this is ridiculous.
And that's the thing
Yeah.
is like whenever you have those kind of moments, particularly in Wind Rises, a lot of those where it's animated on once, which we've talked about before when we did our episode on Redline, where basically what that means is there's one singular keyframe for 24 frames, basically.
Right. There's 24 frames of
And-
animation
yeah.
in a second.
Compared to normally you'll do on twos, which is basically one keyframe every other frame, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, would you guys rewatch it? Would you recommend it?
Oh, come on now.
Absolutely on
Gush
both,
about this
yeah.
a little bit though first. I mean, come on now.
I mean, sure.
Oh, I guess
What
this
do you
is the
want to
opportunity.
say?
I don't know.
You have the floor.
I mean, well, it's just a really, really fun film.
Yeah.
Easy watching. This is also kind of like a borderline all ages film, right?
It is. Absolutely.
Because there are honestly a lot of Miyazaki films that touch on like wars and other heavier
which are a little bit
subjects.
more adult.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to be like an adult to watch they're not cutting people's heads off and anything else.
Unless it's Princess Mononoke, but
We'll get into that one. They don't cut. They bite. They bite the head off.
I don't know. You get to see some arms just get flown
There's
off.
some,
yeah.
there's some destruction.
Back
It's
to
a good-
Kiki.
It's a good film. Anyways,
That is not this film.
but this
Yeah.
is very much so on all ages. There's not really any real stress.
I would almost say the only thing preventing younger kids from watching it would be they might be kind of bored.
yeah.
Because there's
Yeah.
not a lot of action. There's not a lot
And
of
there's not a lot of like,
in-your-face comedy.
I don't want to say bright colors, but like it's a very pastel,
Yeah.
kind of a Mediterranean vibe. Pastel
Looks like a watercolor painting a lot of times. Yeah.
So it doesn't like pop like what a kid might want.
I would say that you probably wouldn't want someone that's younger than like 8 to watch
They'd
this.
probably be very bored.
Probably be very bored.
Probably,
and even
yeah.
8 is kind of on the
if
borderline.
you have a very intellectual 8-year-old, which
Yeah,
means they're
yeah,
on like
someone-
my level of intelligence, that they could
Dead on-
probably
dead
get
on for your
into.
so you have
yeah.
the mind of an 8-year-old is what you're saying.
Yes,
At least the maturity.
at best.
But yeah, I mean, this is a pretty much a full recommend.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest risk again is maybe you hit a moment in the middle where you're just like, I don't know where this is going.
Yeah, well,
Buckle up, find out.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the thing is like it's a lot of the time whenever you have if you're coming from like Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away,
Yeah.
those kind of things, they are very linear story told, plots.
And they're more fantastical.
They are.
Yeah.
There is magic in this, but it's not like magic.
Like
Yeah.
like despite Kiki literally just being a witch, it's
and being
not
able to fly
like
on a broom.
magic. Yeah.
Yeah,
in
so
in
like,
that sense.
if you're listening to this right now and you haven't seen Kiki, but you have seen like Spirited Away or something like that, don't go into this thinking there's going to be like 1,000 magical monsters running around
Yeah,
with
no.
Kiki or like anything like that. This
Nothing.
is
Yeah.
a much
this
more
is real life in an alternative
Yeah.
Europe that where the wars.
Right.
Wait, hold on.
and witches exist. Yeah. But it's still very good. I'm not trying to sell people. I would if I was recommended it to someone, I would put that caveat in there of like if you've seen some other Miyazaki movies or Ghibli movies that are like a little more wild with like the amount of like
Totoro's not going to show up here.
right yeah there's not a lot of like creatures and things like that. So this is a definitely more toned down version of something like that.
Yeah. And for me, I would obviously definitely recommend it. I think this film is just phenomenal in a lot of different aspects. One, because it's very emotional and very grounded, but two, it has phenomenal music done by Joe Hisaishi, and the animation's phenomenal. Like
performances are great.
Yeah,
it's just a really good movie.
And
It's just a good film.
the dub and the sub are both completely acceptable to watch.
Yeah.
So one of the nice things about Ghibli's partnership with Disney is when you look at, honestly, looking at this one in terms of like names you recognize from American actors or Western actors, this is maybe almost like the lightest in terms of, because some of the other films, like they're just like boom, boom, boom,
Heavy
boom
hitters.
names.
Well, I watched it in the subbed this time. And I think it might have been the first time I've watched Kiki subbed. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Because the dub's usually really good. And I don't think the sub was even available when it first released.
Probably not.
You know what I mean? So I'm pretty sure my exposure to it
Yeah.
throughout the years has mostly been the dubbed version. And both are fantastic. I watched the sub last night and loved it. It was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we may not be adorable witches on brooms. However,
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself,
we
sir.
can deliver content.
There it is.
Spice.
Go to spoilersintendedpodcast.com and you can get all of our latest episodes that you can just go and listen to right now. You don't even have to call us.
They're wrapped up in a basket just ready for you to open them and listen.
Crank on that
nice,
radio and
warm
listen to
and
it.
cozy, sultry tones of Ryan.
Some kind of fish pie is there also, but just listen to the episode. It's great.
You can also get links there for things like our Discord.
Yes.
You can come and hang out with us along with other listeners of the podcast. We have great discussions both on current shows and movies, such as the Ahsoka show is going on right now. We've got a spoiler thread for that where you can talk about the show as it happens. Or you can go in there and talk about what's cooking. We talked about food here. I want to hear what's
some of yours?
Yeah, what is your cozy birthday meal, your favorite food from a relative?
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and also some podcasts charge or put their Discord behind a paywall. Not us.
Always
free. Always free.
Just got to find the link.
They do, yeah. It's like a perk. Yeah.
Just got to
Not
find
here.
the link. It's right there on the website. Easy, slam dunk.
Yeah, everybody's welcome. Also, if you're not doing it yet, please follow us on social. We have a Facebook and an Instagram. We would love for you to follow over there and leave comments, interact, share, all that good stuff. And we post once a week. We'll try to post like where we're going to be, what we're going to be watching for the next week,
And where you can find it.
Yeah, where you can find it, so you can watch along with us, so you're caught up and ready to go when the episode hits.
And we are back from the spoiler wall. If you have not seen this film and you don't want to be spoiled, then now is your time to get out of here and go listen to another episode that we have possibly talked about.
Something different.
Something different, but not this.
Go check out Redline. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So here are some top of the hour trivia that we can talk about.
Oh, you are trying for this one now. First off, though, I got to say, that song is a whole vibe. I could listen to that song
I know. Oh,
yeah.
on repeat for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Easy. Just bebopping around.
It's very
roll the
Beach
windows down in the car.
Boys.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. That is a great, like, you hit the road, time to travel.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So for this film, there were 67,317 traditional cells that were made for this movie.
Cells of animation.
Cells of animation.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Then let's see. We have.
Now, did you find out how that compares to like other Miyazaki movies?
I haven't looked up other Miyazaki films. However, just a general idea. Akira from 1987.
Yeah.
Had somewhere around there.
Yeah.
110,000 hand animated frames.
Okay.
So about double the amount compared to this.
You're right.
You know, that kind of thing. But that's an action movie, and
It's longer than this too.
It's substantially longer.
Yeah, there's also
so,
a lot
like,
going on there.
Yeah. So, you know, like it's all thing. But I mean, that's still a substantial amount of work.
Yeah, at
So
no
that's
point while
crazy.
watching this movie did I think,
Like, man, they phoned this in.
man, they needed more. Yeah, they really, didn't go all the way on this section.
So as a comparison, right? I think really what it is, it's action sequences that amp it up.
It does.
Because I just pulled up Princess Mononoke since we mentioned it multiple
Probably
times.
85,000.
Oh no, roughly 144,000 is what this.
That's also a longer film, too.
It is.
It
But
is,
it's one of those things where it's like, I think it's the action sequences that drive it, because you need
all the
so much
ones for a lot of
motion.
stuff.
Yeah.
So this was another fun one. The name of Osono's Bakery, I'm going to butcher this.
Go for it.
Gucci.
Oh no!
Oh, what? No.
Gucci Oki Panya
Sure.
is a Japanese pun made from the words rock, paper, scissors, and Panya for bakery.
So it's rock paper bakery.
Yeah, rock, paper, scissors, bakery.
Okay, rock paper scissors bakery.
But yeah, so I have some other ones, but there's really actually wasn't a ton of trivia that I could pull for this.
That's surprising.
But yeah, so it pretty much all the trivia really revolves around Disney's releases that they did,
Right.
which and like
Interesting.
all the differences and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just get into Spectacle.
Yeah.
I love it.
It looks great.
It's very pretty.
Like I said, you can pause it anytime and go, that's a wallpaper.
Yep.
I can print that off, put that on my wall. It's a painting.
Yeah.
I like the character designs, obviously, especially Kiki, and I like for a movie that doesn't have a ton of action scenes, there are still a lot of like.
There's really only like 3 action like sequences that happen in the film. One whenever she is going into the city for the first time,
Right, yeah.
and then almost gets hit by a bus that is also aptly named Studio Ghibli.
Yeah,
I didn't catch
they
that.
advertise themselves. In
Yeah.
these movies all the
Nice.
time.
We got a bus system now.
And then whenever Tombo is taking her to the dirigible for the first time, the Spirit of Freedom or whatever you want to call it, and they're going down the highway, which is a fantastic sequence.
Yeah.
And then obviously at the end, whenever
the end.
she's obviously attempting to save him from from running into a clock
The
tower.
clock tower in the terrible dirigible.
The worst form of transport. It's slow and dangerous. What a perfect
And it's
combination.
filled with helium. It could just blow.
I'm blown
helium's-
away that no
helium's
one's tried to
safe.
go back to this idea though. And
I am not.
they're like, they just didn't know what they were doing.
No, they have that.
They
Have
have?
you not seen? Also, have you not seen articles where it's like, oh, they've solved the emissions problem of worldwide shipping? Well, if you attach these large kites to them, sails. You've made sails, people.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the world saw in 1937 when the Hindenburg crashed and burned up into a hellfire.
It scared off investors, is what you're saying.
It is worth pointing out that was hydrogen.
Yeah, it was, but it's
Helium is a much higher level of safety.
It is.
It's also a lot harder to acquire.
yeah,
There's also that. There's also that.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like there really isn't a lot of action in this. However,
No, but the point I was making is that the action that is there is animated incredibly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really, really well done. And the framing too, like the way they
very cinematic.
do all the shots
And
is fantastic.
So, our local con, right, will have a vendor who comes through who sells animation cells from various anime.
And he unfortunately knows what he has.
Oh, he knows what he has. Well, so the thing is, any
If you're in that
Ghibli-
business, I don't think you just fall into that. You probably
any Ghibli cell is already worth like several $100s minimum.
by default, yeah.
Yeah. So he had.
It could be a shot of just someone's elbow really close
Yeah.
in the frame. Nope,
But like
$300.
he had the shot that's like the close up of her face as like the blur lines are happening as she speeds up on the broom.
Oh wow.
I had like $3,000.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was like before Laura and I had gotten married. And it's just like I can't. We
can't do
we
this.
Can't just like. Can I afford it? Sure. Should I? Absolutely not.
Steven sits down at the bank. I need a loan. All right, well, let's talk about it. What for? It's an animation cell. It's called Kiki's Delivery Service.
No.
Meeting over. Get out of here.
Presenting this in the wrong. See, the correct way to present this is it is a one of a kind piece of art that is world renowned and beloved and can only appreciate in value. That's how you get a loan. Just telling you right now.
And then you show him the big. Was this from one of those tentacle movies? Get this pervert out of here.
So one thing that Miyazaki did was for the credit roll, he didn't want to bore the audience with just a quick credit roll and there's nothing else there. So he wanted to basically treat the whole sequence to be essentially a sequel, kind of like epilogue.
Oh, okay.
So you can still kind of see like stuff happening.
Yeah.
And
it feels very, from a modern perspective, it feels very much so like, what is this, like a mid-credit scene? Is it in-credit? Like, I'm just getting hit with this. Like, do I need to stay here? Like, I'm going to miss out on the whatever's going to happen in the next Ghibli release? I won't know who this person is they introduce?
well,
That's
and
a smart idea, though.
it was.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, definitely.
And I don't think that this was really back in 1989. I don't really think this was done. That was done very often.
I don't think
Because
so.
this was you have
Especially not for a film.
Right.
I feel like for the credits on like an actual just anime
Yeah,
show,
that's whatever.
There's always something going on in those, but they're also pretty short too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
less people working per episode.
Right.
Yeah, because this was so you had Nausicaa in the early '80s, then you had Totoro, and then this. And
Was
then,
Castle in the Sky in there?
No,
somewhere?
Castle in the Sky was before
Yeah.
this
Yeah, I was
too.
gonna say
So
Castle
this
in
was
the
this
Sky
was number
is-
4.
4, yeah.
And then Porco Rosso came out after this. And I mean, clearly like Miyazaki loves aviation.
Yeah.
And all of like so the plane that goes under him or under her that they notice like right at the beginning of the film.
Yeah.
That's an actual plane, like that.
Oh, sure,
exists.
yeah.
It's
And
all real stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just the amount of detail that he just adds into the city is just so phenomenal.
Well, like you said earlier, it feels lived in. It doesn't feel like just set dressing or like they came up with a background and the city's incidental. It's like the city is a character in, the movie,
And I think that's the most that's one of the most telling parts that you're watching a Miyazaki film is that everything has a story, everything has a personality to it.
Right.
Even if it's an inanimate object or if it's a side character, like you can look at their clothes, you can look at their demeanor of how they're walking down the street and you're like, I know the type of person that is.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and like you just see just bits in the background behind her, and there's just so much going on. Like it feels like a vibrant and alive city.
Well, especially like all like the streetcars,
Vehicles.
and,
yeah. It's crazy, honestly, watching that. Just the level of detail that goes into, like the attention to detail that goes into that, and just knowing the amount of extra time that takes.
Yeah.
Right. For something that presumably most people won't notice. You know what I mean?
Or
Like they're
it just
focused
doesn't-
on the characters.
yeah.
They're not even looking at the background.
Unless you watch it a bunch of times or whatever, you're just an animation nerd.
And and that's the thing too, is that like he's still such a slave to this detail.
Yeah.
That it's never like, because a lot of people are like, oh well, he's trying really hard at the beginning of his career, but then he's kind of phoning it in now. He has refused to phone it in for every single film that he's done.
Right, yeah.
And it's just really just awesome to see just like kind of his style, like I guess, evolve over the years. And
Right.
at this point in time, there's a 4th film, like it definitely has such a different vibe than the other 3 that came before it.
Right.
Because like Castle in the Sky it's not really my taste, but
I like a lot of parts of it.
yeah, it's
But overall,
fine.
it's probably not mine.
I love Castle in the Sky. Don't get out of here.
I really like it. I'm not saying it's bad. I just like, I think for me, when you get to Kiki, right, you're seeing like the hallmark, the trademarks that are there that make it a Miyazaki film.
Yeah.
But you are seeing some evolution. You're seeing some like evolving of techniques and like some stuff like that. But I mean, all of them are great.
They're
Like,
all-
even
yeah.
you go all the way back to Castle of Cagliostro. Like, it's
yeah.
fantastic.
Oh, Cagliostro is great.
Great intro credits on that one with the car. That's great. Anyways, sorry. We could just do a Ghibli like whole episode.
Yeah.
Just start banging them out. Come on, it's
know,
right
we
there.
should.
It's easy.
All right, so let's move on to performance.
Yes.
So we obviously have sub and dub.
Yep.
And I mean, we both said it. We've already said it now. Both versions are pretty fantastic.
They really are. Yeah.
Seen them both. It's really just kind of, well, what do you as a person prefer? And I actually almost would say I think it's worth seeing the movie twice, both ways.
I do too.
Because you tend to, with most translations, you get a little bit of a different, almost, it's the same story, but it's like a slightly different angle.
Sometimes,
Just because of the way the translation typically works out.
So the way that they did Gigi's character in both versions is actually very different. So in the English, Phil Hartman does more of a more like a sarcastic.
I was gonna say more sarcastic,
kind of cynic
yeah.
style of a character.
He's almost like the straight man.
A little
of
bit,
the
yeah,
duo kind of thing. Yeah,
And he's much more comedy relief in that compared to the Japanese version of him,
Right.
where he's a little bit more not timid, but he is a little bit more conscientious, I guess, with like kind of like how he's talking to her, and he's more of like a mentor at that point.
He's not as
instead of-
loud. He's not
Yeah.
as boisterous, I guess, as Phil Hartman's performance was.
Yeah.
But still, both are great.
Oh
Like,
yeah, no, they're both fantastic.
So for me, the way I approach a lot of Miyazaki movies and Ghibli films is like I usually watch them the first time dubbed, so I can just pay attention to the animation, and I'm not having to dart my eyes down to the subtitle, back and forth.
get the basic story plot points down.
Enjoy it, and because again, almost all Miyazaki movies have fantastic dubs. Like
Yes.
they're some of the best. So like you're not gonna have a bad experience that way. Like some other anime from like the early 90s.
Well, yeah,
or
we're
something.
talking about like Castle in the Sky, which is like a mid '80s release. Its dub is good. It wasn't
yeah.
dubbed in the mid '80s, but the dub that is out now is
very
very
good.
good. So
Yeah.
you can, whereas some other thing that's still holding on to its mid '80s dub is like, oh boy,
Yeah, it's
looking at you, Zeta Gundam.
but so and then I watch it again usually at some point, whether
Yeah.
it's like soon or a year or two later. I'll watch it sub just so I can see like what's the difference in the story, or like, you know, it's harder to catch the minor nuances, but you can kind of catch some vibes. Like this time I had never seen it sub before, and I was like, oh, Gigi's totally different.
Yeah.
This is not like Phil Hartman's
very different
portrayal
vibe.
at all. Yeah.
So because I watched the dub this time, and I
look
completely
at you.
forgot that Tombo was Matthew Lawrence for this, and I was like, he sounds so familiar. That's not Zac Efron. He would be too young for this.
Right.
And I was like, who was the sweetheart in the 90s?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, Matthew Lawrence. There it is, right there.
It's either him or Jonathan Taylor Thomas.
Yeah, I was like, JTT, baby. But he honestly did a
back
really
in the
good job.
day.
I thought he fit Tombo's character quite well.
Yeah.
And Kirsten Dunst honestly was fantastic.
Yeah, she did really good for Kiki.
It's funny because like Matthew Lawrence you could almost put glasses on him at that age. You'd be like, yeah, that looks kind of like Tombo.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kirsten Dunst looks nothing like Kiki.
No, not at all. Let's see. Trying to think if there was anyone else on here.
So my personal,
it's a really small cast. So.
It is. My personal favorite performance is essentially a character who isn't voiced. It's the baker, the husband.
That dude rules.
I love like his little
Fukuo.
little interaction with Gigi when they first move in.
Yeah.
Where they like look at each other and he winks at him. I'm like, man, I love this dude. This dude's awesome.
Well, and that's the thing too is like, you know, we're obviously talking about performance, but that also comes in with
animation is
animation
always
and
a part
stuff.
of it. Yep.
Yeah.
And his character I love because he's very quiet. I think he has like 2 lines in the whole film.
Yeah.
Right.
But every other time you see that he genuinely does care about Kiki's like well-being, where you know he's obviously like pacing whenever
like when
like the
she's
storm
late,
and
he's
she's
pacing.
late.
Yeah.
And you know he makes the little sign for her and those kind of things, which are really it's just such a good little touch to a character that you don't really get to interact with.
It tells so much about him without saying anything. You know what I mean? Like just the sign alone is like you immediately get what kind of dude this is.
Well, because I mean, like this is, you know, the 1950s. It did not it took him probably a good while to make this bespoke sign.
Oh, it took him all day at least.
Yeah. He's had this design in his head for like a month at this point.
Yeah.
Also, how to make it.
Want to shout out the artist in the woods. I can't think of her
Ursula.
character. Ursula.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Is that actually? I missed her name. Apparently.
I was gonna say I think I missed her name initially, and then they just don't say it again after that first time.
Yeah.
But she's great.
She's really nice. And the fun thing is, in the Japanese version, Minami Takayama plays both Kiki and Ursula.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Wow, I didn't catch that at all. Yeah.
It's like breaking out the old Winnie the Pooh, where it's just one guy talking to himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Janine Garofalo.
Garofalo? Janine Garofalo, the comedian?
That's the thing.
Okay.
I see the word. I've never heard it before.
Garofalo. You know Janine Garofalo. She's in Seinfeld. She's in
I was like, she's in
other
Seinfeld.
stuff.
I know she was in Seinfeld.
Yeah.
But I don't know the actress's name. I just know that she was in Seinfeld.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
But she did fantastic.
Yeah, she's great in that role. Kind of the substitute mentor, like a.
Well, she's a mentor. I mean, but really a friend. She's really
like a pseudo. I don't want to call her like an adult figure, but she's kind of like the version of where Kiki looks at it and can say, "Oh, when I actually grow up, I could be like this. I could be this independent, etc."
Well, and that's one of the biggest themes about because she, Ursula herself, has artist block, and she's trying to overcome it. That's why she goes into town. That's why she tries to do other
Goes to the
things.
cabin in the woods.
Yeah, just to like get a different change of pace and go and find more creative drive as an artist. And one, I can completely understand that. But then two, it also shows Kiki that, like there are ways around these kind of mental blocks that you put up yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out the grandma and the housekeeper.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah.
I love when the airship is like going down in flames basically on TV, and the housekeeper is like, "This is the most exciting thing that's happened to us in our entire life."
I know.
Kind of moment.
I like the
people could die here, lady.
The scene where she's
down.
in the hallway and she's hopping on the broom and she's kind of like acting like she's a witch.
Yeah.
I was like, again, that's one of those like tiny bits of animation that just tells you so much about that character.
And world building too, because like clearly like everyone accepts that witches exist.
They just
here.
exist.
Right, yeah. It's
But-
not like this weird thing. Like,
But
Ooh, witch.
they're still rare
They're
enough
rare.
to where
Yeah.
this person who's clearly in like probably your 70s or 80s, wouldn't have really interacted
maybe
with
Has
never
never
seen
come across a
one.
witch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really cool. I like those kind of touches.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the score of the movie.
Oh, man.
Done by Joe Hisaishi.
So many things to choose from.
And now, has he done most of Miyazaki's
done
movies?
all of them.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's basically like
He
lives
is
in the,
the
studio.
guy.
I thought it was all of them, but I didn't want to
chained
like.
to a wall in the basement of Ghibli. He like comes out, he's like, Joe, I got work.
They wake him up once every few years.
Comes out with a stick, pokes him awake.
Yeah, Joe does some amazing work. And he's
Every time.
he feels very similar to like the John Williams of Japan for
Right.
just these kind of films. Like he has a very specific style, but he does such a good job at composing these themes and leitmotifs that go out throughout the films that they're all so unique.
Well, I mean, it just like John Williams or other people, he has that ability to where like you hear the hallmarks of his work, and it sounds like him through all the movies, but they all sound distinct and unique,
and they fit the sequence they're in.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Man, he loves his strings.
Doesn't he, though?
Yes. You should throw on the track.
Oh, neither of you are prepared.
A Seaside Town, I think is what it is.
Town with an ocean view.
Town with an ocean view.
That's
There it is.
it.
I was close enough.
Yeah, good enough.
Lost in translation. Like this is so just immediately distinctly Ghibli.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, and it has like it's one very Ghibli, but then it also just has such a vibe of like, seaside ocean town.
This has got
It does,
a
yeah.
little bit of whimsy to it. It's got just it's such a good flow.
Yeah, he just does such a fantastic job. If you want a fantastic like hour or 2 hour just viewing on YouTube that you can just throw on, you don't have to actually watch the whole thing, but there's the 25th anniversary Ghibli concert that he conducted.
Yeah.
And full orchestra. Oh yeah, it's good.
Full
cool.
orchestra, massive like 300 person choir.
Yeah.
It's absurdly good.
What year was that? What's that from?
2016.
Okay.
Mark, somewhere around there. But all you have to do is just go do Studio Ghibli concert.
Yeah.
And there's going to be like at least 2 or 3 of those pop up. And it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. Just
Nice.
totally worth watching. No. All right, so let's move on, unless you guys want to talk any more about music.
No, I mean, like, for me, the music, again, is such an integral part of this experience and the movie that, again, the first time I saw it, I was kind of like, okay, so this is quaint, And again, I kept waiting since I thought it was a witch. It was a story about like magic. There was going to be that Spirited Away twist of like, all the supernatural stuff starts to come in.
When the bad stuff happens.
Right, yeah. And I was like, oh, it's coming, here we go. And it never does. And you're like, oh, okay. But like the music throughout it paints such a picture too of like, again, like you're saying, like it connects like the seaside town to like her emotions and what she's going through to like the heroic songs at the end when she's like saving Tombo, like all of it, like I don't know, it fits every scene perfectly.
Well, and he does such a good job at directing how the music is or how the soundtrack is used, because there's a moment at the end where she is saving him and there's no sound,
It's dead silent.
just dead silence.
Yeah.
Well, it's the big gasp from the crowd, right? Everyone inhales and they're holding their breath, and it makes you do the same thing.
Yeah,
Right.
And it's such a phenomenal piece of directing whenever you do have those moments, because like it's one of those things where I will always harp on this, that I think music and sound design is one of the most important parts in film and TV.
Yeah.
Just because like you need to be like, audiences need to be helped along with emotions.
Well,
and
it's a cheat code. It's a way to just go straight to the heart of the matter and grab your audience's heartstrings and pull and twist and pluck at
Well,
them.
there's a video on YouTube, and I can't remember exactly what to tell someone to search to look it up, but it's basically they take this one scene and they put like 4 different music tracks under it, and like each track makes the context of the scene
Just
change
totally different.
wildly, and it just it was to highlight like you have to have the right music for the right scene, otherwise things can go understood.
That's
or
actually
like
been kind of like a TikTok trend
Oh,
of late, where it's like, music makes the difference, and it's the Darth Vader boarding, Return of the Jedi boarding the Death Star,
And the Curb Your
they're
Enthusiasm
playing
song is
different,
playing.
they're playing different music. or whatever.
But I mean, it really does make such a big difference when you have a good director behind these kind of things, because then they know when not to use it or when to use it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, Miyazaki's just a master.
Well, there's one scene. It's after they get to the dirigible the first time, and the car pulls up with his friends. There's like no music playing. Like,
Well, yeah, 'cause
it
know
cuts
they-
out again, and it's kind of like it. for a moment I was like, why is there no music here? Then you kind of understand. It's like
she's going back into her shell.
Yeah.
Collapse. Like the fun lightheartedness is ending.
It
and
is.
she's pulling back.
Yeah.
Well, because now she's been reminded. That's great, kind of to just segue into plot, but she's reminded that there are people in this world that are not friendly and kind.
Right.
Because this, the granddaughter.
That dirtbag granddaughter who didn't want her grandma's pie and she could choke on it for all I care.
But that's one of those things where it really underscores his ability to really like portray a lot of her emotions very well for this kind of movie. There's no overarching plot. There's no antagonist outside of her own self-doubt. And whenever you have those moments, he does
what
such
if the villain was inside you all along?
It is.
It always is.
He just does such a good job at punctuating those to where like everyone can relate to that.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, plot. Speaking of, like, I don't know. I could definitely, like I said, see someone complaining that it's a bit slow, or
And
it's
there's like, oh, there's nothing happens.
there's
in
nothing
this.
happening,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Like you
there's
have
kind
to.
of a middle space, right, where you're like, and it's not actually in the middle of the film. It's actually kind of late in the film.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like the last like quarter.
where you're just kind of almost like, so where are we going? Oh, this is where we're going. Okay.
Well, no, that's
Right,
kind of.
yeah.
I think that's kind of the point, though.
It is.
Is a lot of. I mean, this is a slice of life, genre. So whenever you have this, it's not about like these big fantastical moments. It's about overcoming your own self-doubt, creating self-confidence.
That's right, children. Welcome to real life. You're not going to have big fantastical moments.
Yeah.
Get ready for the humdrum.
I mean,
No, I mean, but it is.
Get ready for the humdrum.
It's an important lesson. You got to learn it at some point.
Yeah.
Look at the screen, Timmy. Take the notes. Yeah, but like her journey, and like it's such a wild like little like they do a whole lot without getting just in the weeds with like world building. Like that like when witches turn 13, they have to just find a town, and I'm going like, just find a town. Like you just go, and then one just says, hey, you can live here, or like you just got to feel it out, and it's such a like. It's abstract. They don't get like into the weeds about like why this happens or like
or what the. Well, I mean, the mother just kind of say, well, it's an old tradition. So it's kind of almost like a family thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Is I really feel that a lot of those kind of like I'll say motivations for her to leave are really her personal motivations, not she needs to do this to become a witch because she already is one essentially.
Right.
It's really more on the lines of, well, our family's always done this. This is just kind of what our culture does.
Well, and I also like how you can see kind of the changing attitude because her mom, like she hears on the weather report, right, that it's going to be a nice cloudless full moon. Oh, perfect night for me to leave. This is I'm gonna. Well, I thought we were gonna wait until next month, honey.
Yeah.
Well, you can't guarantee the weather, mom.
Yeah.
Well, man, you always feel bad for the dad whenever he comes up.
I feel so bad for that dad.
He's what about the camping trip? Well, that'll just have to wait for never.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, my heart.
Poor dad.
As soon as she flies off and hits the trees, he's like, I spent $800 on all this camping equipment.
I do like the little moment of the bells, but then all of them listening to make sure she doesn't fall into the water.
Yeah. They're just waiting with bated breath. Okay, she's definitely past the water now.
And it's also funny too because like that bit there, and also when she gets the substitute broom, the street sweeper broom at the end, and she kind of does the same maneuver off of the buildings, and it's like when I think about the height involved in this, that could be really dangerous, and it's kind of almost played for laughs.
Yeah.
Although at the later point, she's so determined that it just, she almost works with the system kind of thing.
Right, but the way they animate that too is great on that point.
Yeah.
Where like her the chasing momentum and like gravity and like the way it's floaty. Like it's just great that they were able to like conceptualize physics on a fake broom, but it feels real. It feels like, oh yeah, that's what a street sweeper broom would probably feel like if you're
if you were trying to ride it. Yeah. Well, and I do like the idea that she can go through and like just pick up any broom and use it. It doesn't have to be like a magical broom.
Yeah, so I had the thought of like, could you use a mop?
Could you use a vacuum?
Hocus
Right.
Pocus is
Yeah.
like, hey, by the way, we are also in this world.
It's an electronic broom.
Yeah.
We're in the same world as this, the same universe, shared universe.
To that point, like in the plot, they don't get bogged down in like setting up a bunch of weird rules of like you
No,
can only
it's
use
just-
a broom that you designed.
If you don't leave the house by the time you're 14, you turn into a toad.
Right.
You know, whatever.
There's no need for any of that. Like we have everything we need. And then as we start going through it and she meets like all these characters, like it's also a movie about kindness, I think, in a lot of ways. Because like
definitely.
even though it's about overcoming self-doubt, like there's so many people that just help her out along the way that it just makes you feel warm inside. Like the baker, her husband, the
artist.
Yeah, the artist, the lady that she gives the pacifier to, gives her like her first job, or the lady from next door that gives her the first job or whatever, the bakery, and then the grandma, and she's like baking this thing. She helps her bake the pie, and it's that like roll up your sleeves. I got to do what's right. I know this is basically it's like it almost has the same vibe of like that like the country bumpkin, like
Yeah.
you know,
It's like,
I'm not going to stand aside and watch you not be able to bake this pie. Let's
Yeah.
get this done. What do we got to do?
Yeah.
The task has been set. Okay, we need this, we need that.
Well,
you know?
and also you get a lot of good contrast too, because we go directly from grandma's house
Yeah.
to the little brat's house.
Snooty house.
Well, and the heartbreak of just like all this time that we've all seen,
Right.
and that
And
she's
the emotional
experienced.
investment in
Yeah.
this, yeah, and it's just
And she's
it's one
like-
of grandma's crappy pies. Well, and then also
Just
not-
makes you want to punch her in the
I
mouth.
wanted to roll that heifer out in the rain. Just like, get that girl out of here.
not just that too, but also like the family dog with Gigi.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Because
Yeah.
like, they're kind to the dog, and the dog comes in and helps them out.
Yeah.
Does them a solid. I still love him just being like, "Oh, I'm gonna curl up with that cat. That cat is having a bad moment right now."
Yeah.
I love that whole portion of the film, just because it's its own little short story,
It is,
just
yeah.
encapsulated in it, and it's really, really fun because one, you have this poor cat, a magical cat that has, has to like deal with this kid.
First, yeah, he's like being held by his tail upside down by this kid. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah. So let's talk about the end of the film.
Okay.
Which, particularly the most controversial part of the film, I think, is essentially
that Gigi doesn't talk.
The Gigi doesn't talk. Now, there are two different, there's actually three different versions of this.
Yeah.
So the Japanese version, he doesn't, Miyazaki specifically did not want him to talk.
Right.
Because he wanted to basically portray that.
You're old now, kid.
Well, basically that Gigi has grown up and Kiki has grown up and she has the self-confidence to not rely on him.
They can go their own
okay.
separate ways and
Yeah.
still come together when they
Yeah.
want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they're still family. And one of the things, too, is that they grew up together as,
Right.
basically like from infancy or whatever. So they have this connection that they can talk with each other where, according to Miyazaki, that is not common in the... in their world.
Oh, okay. So like,
witch
not every
world.
witch has like a cat they can talk to.
Exactly.
Got it.
So then, if you go to the Disney version
Mm-hmm.
from 1998, they have it to where he actually does say something at the end in English,
Mm.
to where it basically is telling audiences, "Oh, she got her powers back, so now she can talk."
Right.
So
With Gigi.
it's tied up with a bow.
Yeah, which it does kind of cut out from under like the general message of what he was going for.
Yeah.
Then fast forward to 2010 when they did the remaster, they removed it.
Okay.
So
They
now
went-
he
they went
doesn't
back
speak at
to
the end.
him meowing.
Got it. Well, because like I remembered him speaking probably because one of the last times I saw the English version was the original, or
Disney
maybe
Channel or whatever.
Yeah.
I have seen the fixed one, but I just in my head I still remember him talking at the end
Yes.
because in my head it's like it's because she lost her powers. This time watching it subbed, she never talks to him again, and I was like, huh, oh, so he just like got laid and grew up, and so
Yeah,
he's
well,
not
yeah, that's
talking
the thing
anymore.
is,
He's
like,
a
She's-
family man now.
yeah, she's
yeah.
moved on. Yeah, he's like, yeah.
Well, and that's that's kind of the thing that he was going for, is that she doesn't need his support anymore outside of being just a family member, and
Right.
she doesn't have to be able to talk with him to be able to I'll
See,
He was like an emotional support
yeah,
animal, really.
I like the other theory that's out there.
Oh, gosh.
And that the English version I think really supports, where in a lot of ways Gigi is kind of like her inner voice. So she's not actually talking,
yeah.
and the cat's not actually responding. It's more she's talking to herself, and it's her, angel on the shoulder response of,
Right.
Jiminy
I probably
Cricket.
shouldn't do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, is her conscience. And then now the two have come together. She's accepted herself, so she's no longer having those moments. So Gigi's just been a cat the whole time.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like that theory.
That's not bad.
I think that's that's fine too, and I think that's
And I think it has, if not the law of the letter that Miyazaki laid out, it has at least the soul of the
Yes,
the
it
concept
does.
is there.
yeah,
I think
because
maybe it's that the girl he's dating is really stuck up, and he's just got to act like he doesn't speak English anymore to impress
She
her.
only speaks cat.
Yeah, he's like, meow. I don't know. Who's this weird girl talking to me? I never met her.
yeah, I mean, like it really does. The ending is kind of open up to interpretation.
And that is a common thing, not just with Ghibli films,
Just
but also
very Japanese.
It's very Japanese.
Yeah. And I could definitely see like people that would see this movie and get upset about this, particularly maybe younger kids, where they're just like, well, why does he never talk again? You know,
Right.
and that kind of closure just isn't something.
Man, you want to terrify a kid? She's like, but she got her powers back. Why can't I just talk to her? Well, I mean, she's grown up now. She doesn't need to talk to her. Like, I don't want to grow up.
Also, powers aren't real.
Yeah.
Just crush your kid's soul early.
Yeah. Take notes, Timmy. Keep taking notes.
All right, so let's move into some entertainment.
Entertained.
Were you entertained?
I was entertained.
I am always entertained with this
I
film.
want to hear your favorite scenes. Come on.
I think I really like the scene where they are initially. She picks up the bird cage to deliver it. The big sweeping shot over the city.
Oh, yeah.
And then they go up and start talking to the geese, which is really fun.
You're taking my sequence here. It's not fair.
No, it's mine.
Just because, honestly, I totally forgot about this. And it's like, oh, they say a gust of wind is coming. And these geese just get absolutely wrecked. It's like, but you knew it was coming. Why are y'all also just getting wiped out by this?
Because they were trying to make sure that she was going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it's just that like when they're like a gust of wind. No, I was like, what if there's just a miniature tornado?
Just a mini tornado.
I like the whole sequence that follows that too, where essentially like she tries to go back and get the stuffed
and the
animal,
magpies
and
are after her,
the magpies are after him, and then she goes and finds obviously Ursula's cabin.
Yeah.
And she finds it in the
Window.
in the window, and she tries to get it back, and she was like, "Well, now it's damaged because they were mad at it. Go figure, because they're birds."
Yeah.
and
Stupid
and then
birds.
she gets to kind of like you have a little bit of a fun interaction where she's like obviously helping out
Right.
and cleaning up the house while Ursula's patching
it,
up
yeah.
the stuffed animal. While you get little cutaways of Gigi dealing with being this kid's stuffed animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Ryan, what you got?
My favorite is the one that got me, when I watched it this most recent time. It usually gets me, but this time, man, it hit hard. I bawled my eyes out. It's when the grandma gives her the cake. And she opens it, and it's
I
the
cried
Kiki.
too at this time.
I have a delivery for a little girl.
Oh man, it like wrecked me. I was like a mess because like it was just that the culmination of everything that's happened in that
Because she's
movie.
at her lowest point.
Right. And it's just this pure, unadulterated kindness from this stranger, essentially,
yeah.
like some lady she doesn't really know. And it's just like, oh, it murdered me. I don't know. I was just like bawling on
It's
the couch.
because you're getting older and sentimentality is real.
It is, yeah. My wife's
closer-
like, "Are you okay?"
You're
I'm
getting
like,
closer
"I'm
to being that
fine."
grandmother than you are Kiki.
I am closer to the grandmother than I am
How does that
Kiki.
make you feel about yourself?
Well,
It's not the same.
when I was watching it
Back
for
salutes.
for this, I was doing something else. I was like working a little bit, just like putting together like dials or whatever, and like this moment hits, and I was like, I gotta stop for a second.
slow
Like,
down.
this is like. I forgot.
I can't
forgot
see
how hard
my
this hits.
my hands because it's blurry. What's going on? What is water from ice? Rain.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the magical things about Ghibli films and Miyazaki films in particular is that he knows how to manipulate emotions enough to where like you have this kind of like an unseen buildup where you're like, wow, this is really sad. She's lost her powers. I don't know what's going to happen. She's uncertain.
Yeah.
And then you just have like this underscore moment where you're just like, there's still people that are going to be really, really kind to her. She's going to be okay. And you're like, oh God, no.
Yeah. Steven, what's your favorite scene?
I already took it, so he's got to.
You kind of did, yeah. I'm kind of punting to some backups here. So honestly, I really like the initial flight sequence. It's like we get out of the weeds of the trees.
Yeah.
And we get her up in the sky, radio's on, fun little bebop songs going along.
She meets that other witch.
How to get run into the snooty witch.
But even though she is kind of snooty, she doesn't go like as full snooty as she could have.
Oh no. She does though, because Kiki is like, oh, is that your town? It's mine, only mine. Or, oh, it's so big. Oh, well, maybe to you. Kiki's like, I'm going to find the biggest oceanside town.
Yeah.
Got a clock tower.
Dirigibles visit my town.
Can you even spell that? I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, and then, obviously then Gigi makes the comment of, man, that cat was really stuck up too.
Yeah. Well, they just kind of pile on. I don't know. Something about that always gets me. And it's also interesting too, because that witch's design is so similar to the witch from Mary and the Witch's Flower.
I was actually about to bring that up. I had a headcanon in whenever Mary and the Witch's Flower was going to come out. I was like, that's the girl from Kiki's Delivery Service. I already don't like her.
Which, for people, which is basically everybody probably who aren't in the know, so there's a studio that formed, and it's basically a lot of people who left Ghibli to open their own studio, and their first big full feature was
Mary and the Witch's
Flower. And the girl character witch's design is very similar. Like there are a lot of Pixar style theories where it's like, oh, this is like Mary's mom when she was a kid kind of thing going around or whatnot.
Yeah.
Because they look very similar.
Very, very similar.
Eerily similar.
Yeah.
All right. So, I think we're kind of winding down here.
Yeah.
However, before we go, we always have to talk about Patreon.
We do.
Patreon.
Not one specific patron.
Patron. All right, we're going to spin the wheel of patrons.
All right,
and
Nick.
It's this person I don't know, but they support us, and I love them for it.
Yeah. Well, we do love all of our patrons. However, we need to talk about Patreon.
Yes.
So for just one low amount of $1 per month.
It's just $1. It's just $1.
Just $1. You get access to all of our bonus content every month. Everything that's already come beforehand.
All the bonus episodes we've done, plus at least we're going to make one new bonus episode a month.
Guaranteed.
Sometimes more.
Sometimes more.
Yeah.
Along with that, you also get access to our commentaries. So what these are is you can pop in the film that we have a commentary for and listen along with us for Mystery Science Theater 3000 style.
Yeah, you play the podcast on your phone, you play the movie on your TV, and it's like we're right there sitting next to you.
It's like we're on the couch with you, cracking jokes and maybe throwing out a little bit, sometimes useful trivia, never actually useful.
Well, so it has nothing to do with Kiki's Delivery Service and is not cozy at all, but you can go listen to me watch Starship Troopers for the first time.
Oh yeah, it was an incredible experience to sit next to someone who's never seen Starship Troopers.
You can also go and listen to me react to Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for the first time. It's not as fun. It's not.
It's not as fun.
No, I thought it was pretty fun.
It was kind of fun watching Steven go like, "What?
What is happening?
What are we doing? Why are they doing this?"
We also have Patreon picks polls, so if you want to steer the future of the podcast, you can get in there and vote. We have them up, every couple months or so. We have a different theme for each one. You can vote on a movie that we'll cover. We'll do a full episode on it that patrons get early access to, but then it does hit the main feed. So, for $1, you get a lot of content.
And if Patreon is not for you, that is totally okay, because you can still support the show by tossing us a share and a like on Facebook and Instagram.
Review, hit those 5 stars.
Yep.
Yeah, review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts.
Wherever you're listening to podcasts.
Whatever.
Just share us with a friend. It would be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So that does sound like all the time we have this week. So until next time, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.